On the scale from 1 to 10, how do you think you are in control in various aspects in your business? I mean, your visibility, your client acquisition, maybe even taking a break. So I was watching this silly reality show the other day, and suddenly they changed the rules towards the end. And somebody who I thought was gonna win, all their plans went to hell. Not only that, they realized that people who they thought were friends were lying to them all along. So the question is, how are you in control? Because what I realized and what I thought in that moment was, oh my God, are we all in this reality show, in this game? So that's the topic for this episode, and welcome to the new episode on From Grind to Grace. I'm Edita, and this is a show for the alternative entrepreneur who is ready to flip the script, challenge the norms, and choose freedom first. When freedom is not a destination, when freedom is the path, because when you stop grinding for it, success tags along. So the mission is to make this the new reality, the norm for yourself, for your children, and for humanity. And that's what I explore on this podcast. And that's what I ask questions about to my guests. And today I have the amazing guest. I'm super delighted to have her on my show today, Samantha Riley. Very welcome, Samantha. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Adija. I'm excited to be here too. But I have to close the loop before we go on. What is the reality show that you're talking about?
It was something about a millionaire being a millionaire. So people had to move a million
Okay.
bucks among themselves, and one of them was getting a box with a hidden that
Oh,
nobody knew about. Everybody had to guess which one, who was the person who had it, and the goal for the person was to keep it. But then they kept changing the rules. Everything kept changing overnight, and things like that. I was like, oh my God, are we all in a reality show here? You know,
yeah.
running our business. And well, we'll dive into that, right? I
Absolutely.
just it just dawned on me as like crazy, and like my mission is to get out of it, but let's talk about it. And first, um because, and also just to add, because can you really be free, right, if you are in someone's game?
Yeah, exactly right. Like in the Matrix, right?
Yeah, so to lead up to our conversation, I guess everything, the what triggered or what inspired me to invite you on my show was your post about creating your own platform, creating your own game, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I guess for us to start, so first, if you could introduce yourself a little bit so people have the context, but also then what inspired you to create that post? How did you get to that?
Mm. Oh, okay. Let's keep this as short and as brief as possible. So, I've been in business for over 30 years now in many different industries and niches. I've had multiple businesses. And in about 2010, I moved into coaching, uh, more in like personal training and wellness. And over time, through doing retreats with my clients, and they were all asking, oh my goodness, how do you run all your businesses? How do you start them? We want to get out of our job and start a business. And I started coaching them, and the business transitioned into business coaching. That has really transitioned into the niche that I help people to be the sought after authority or the sought after industry leader in their niche. And I think that this is really important because there's so much noise online. We all know that it's very noisy, and you need to be super compelling. People need to understand your differences because there's millions of people out there that on paper do what you do. So it's about you helping them to understand what makes you different, why you're a category of one, and why you're the only option.
Yeah, I so agree. Now, the question is, what is that? What is category one? How can people understand it? Because I think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people think, my stuff is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs it.
Yep. And it probably is. It most probably is amazing. And most probably lots of people need what you've got, but they don't understand that or they don't know that. And it can be really challenging to figure it out. I've got a saying that I use a lot, and it's you can't read the label from inside the jar. And what that means is it can be really difficult to help you understand or to understand what makes you different, what puts you in this category of one, what makes you the only option, because your zone of genius to you, it's almost like you can't see it because it comes so easily to you that you don't even know your zone of genius because you do it so easily. You think, oh, can't everyone do that? Doesn't everyone do that? So it's really important that you have either a coach or a mentor or even someone that's a sounding board to help you work through that so that you start to understand what makes you different. And this isn't something that you're going to be able to do in 2 seconds. I
Mhm.
feel like it's a journey. It's a journey that you have to go on to really start to understand yourself, to start to um, learn about why you do what you do in the way that you do things. And that journey, like I said, it doesn't kind of happen on day one. You have to, but you do have to take action. You do need to start going. You need to get going and keep working on it and let it evolve. I just remember that you actually asked me what was about the platform and what made me post that. So that taps into what I've just talked about here. It's really important that we build our own platform because when we have our own platform, that's how we share our message. That's how we build influence. And the more that we can influence people, the more successful we're going to be, right? Because that influence is helping people to achieve different outcomes, to get, to win, to get whatever it is that the outcome, the desired change that they want. So that particular post that I was talking that you saw was specifically about using podcasting as a platform because there's many different platforms that we can create. A lot of people think social media. They think, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, because they are all platforms. And that's right. We do want to build those platforms. But I want people to understand that at any time, those platforms can be taken away because they're owned by someone else. They're owned by big corporations that at any time they can shut your account down. So definitely build them. I'm not saying don't build them, but you need to create an ecosystem where you're interacting with these people in these places, but how do you get them to your own platforms that no one can take away? Specifically, an email list is one. And I believe that a podcast is one of the best platforms to build because it's a way that we can share our thoughts, our message, our who we are. People can get to know us through our voice, through our quirks, through our values, all of the way that we share, and they can get to know us deeply. And it's not, what's the word? It's not censored. On a podcast, our message isn't censored.
Yeah, I mean, so much gold in that, and it's music to my ears because I've been talking about platform for selling specifically so much, but then, in terms of creating an ecosystem, I've been moving towards that more and more and more and more with time, and also the sense of liberation when you realize that you can do your own thing the way you want to
Yeah,
do it, your rules and your voice and your guests and your message and everything, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it. So and I've been talking quite a bit about the harsh reality of relying to on on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean when I talk about the reality show.
Yeah.
We are the ones.
You're playing someone else's game,
That's
right?
right. You are the content, just like
Yep.
in the reality show, right? You are the
Yep. Yep.
content. You are posting selfies from your freaking bathroom, from your most intimate moments, right?
Yeah.
And then it disappears. Oh, and when you said about who knows what's gonna happen, let's remember about the recent events about TikTok. And still it's hanging
Exactly.
up in the air, right?
Yeah. It could be taken away at any moment. And it's not just that. It's we're playing exact going back to your metaphor about the game. We're playing by that platform's rules. When we do what that platform wants, they will decide whether they will show our post. Will they show our video? Will other people see our post? If it doesn't meet community guidelines, they can take your post down.
Mm.
And you can't even, I've seen some ridiculous things get taken down, yet there's all sorts of scams on there that live on the platforms. So we don't really have as much ownership on those platforms than we think we do.
Exactly, exactly. And I really want more people to hear about this, because they are grinding. It's causing people to grind.
Mm,
Also, the tools are
yes.
always changing.
Yep.
It's been
Exactly.
I remember a few years ago, Facebook Live was a big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was at some point I was creating 7 Facebook Lives a week, every day, right? And then
Oh, whoa, that sounds like a lot.
I got into the rhythm and it wasn't too bad. The
Okay.
worst was
Yeah.
when I thought I needed to do it every day to keep the momentum going, and I was doing it even when
Uh-huh.
I was on holidays.
Yeah, wow.
You
Yeah.
know? But then
So
the
someone else's
algorithm changed.
rules.
Right, the algorithm. And then we started hearing about stories and then about reels, whatever. I don't know. I haven't followed these trends for a while, now. So it's all cool, but that's the reality. And people think they are in control. And I mix a lot with now more spiritual entrepreneurs, and
Mm-hmm.
they believe in energies and I believe in energy too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But tell me if you agree with this and why is it that's not all, just your inner, like, I mean, there's this vibe, this thinking that the right people will find you. You will attract people by broadcasting your energy, but why is it's not working, right? Just because
Mm.
of that.
You're not going. So, this is really interesting, right? Because I'm into human design, and what that is we all have a unique energy blueprint, and it's the way that blueprint tells us or shows us or is the way that we communicate with the world. So I'm a big believer in we do attract people with the right energy. But that doesn't mean that you're going to attract all the people that you should be attracting with that energy. And I think that's what you're getting at, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like if Facebook, for example, let's just say Facebook says, oh, this post is interesting. I'll show this to 10 people. So, like, organic reach is way, way down what it was years ago. Hardly anyone sees our posts. So, Facebook's rule is I'll show this to 10 people. But if that shows your post to 10 people that aren't in energetic alignment, then it doesn't work. We still have to hope that Facebook will show it to the right people that feel that energy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You were saying that, and I was feeling contractions in my body, just thinking
Yeah.
all the waste of time and all the, I don't know, energy and everything and hopes and, all the disappointment that follows. And
I do
and
want to say though, I don't, I, and this is from my perspective. So this isn't, um, it's not true for everybody, but this is true for me. I think that social media is a, um, an amplifier. I think it can be a really useful tool.
Mhm.
I have connected with so many people all around the world that if I wasn't on social media, I would never have met. You and I met because I posted something on social. We connected, and then you saw my posts. And I remember when I very first started chatting to you through Messenger, we'd never even spoken before, and you were telling me I'm thinking of starting a podcast. I don't know if you remember, we had a chat about you starting a podcast. That would never have happened if we weren't on social media. I've met so many great podcast hosts, clients, some people that I would call my closest business friends or my closest friends around the world, and I've met them on social media. So I don't know that I would say it's a waste of time. However, to what you were saying, 7 Facebook lives a day is not the best use of your time as a business owner. So I just
you
wanted
know,
to clarify like the nuance there a little bit.
yeah, I don't regret it because I learned so much as well.
Right?
I was
Yeah.
covering my voice, all those kind of things. And I agree, like I still use social media. I guess what you and I are saying in your post was about as well, that relying completely on it
Mm-hmm.
without creating
Mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
own platform, relying on it for getting clients. Like if you, how can,
Very dangerous place to be, isn't it?
mm-hmm, right? And instead of, so I think, and let me know if you agree, instead of posting your content everywhere, like it's such a common thing to do now, all the different platforms, maybe it's worth just using one, maybe two, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm.
and creating your own platform where you are in control. And then actually leveraging
Absolutely.
that, right? How do you do that?
Absolutely.
How is it working for you? And
Yeah, so think about it as an ecosystem. And what I mean by that is you've got think about it like a spider web. I'm trying to create the visuals for people that are listening. You've got someone that might be connected with you on social media, and you might offer some sort of resource so that they join your email list. And then when they're on your email list, you might send out an email that says, "Hey, listen to my podcast." Someone may come in first and discover you on your podcast, and you'll say, "Hey, look, download this free resource," and they move to your email list, or follow me on Instagram and they'll move over there. So what you're trying to do is have all of the different platforms and move people between all of them. So it doesn't matter where they come in on the web, or come into the ecosystem. You're saying, "Hey, I'm in all of these other places, come and follow me there, or come and join me there." And then what that does is it creates trust. People get to know you better. They get to see you in different places. They just really connect with you in a different way. And it means that you're safer because you've got them connecting with you in all of the different places, rather than just, "Hey, come and follow me on Instagram." And all of a sudden tomorrow your Instagram account gets shut down and you're like, "Uh-oh, I have no way to speak to the people in my world."
yeah, exactly. And also, you create a piece of content that you can repurpose. So
Mm-hmm.
I had this guest on my show 2, 3 weeks ago, and then she had me, or was it the other way around? Anyway, so we created together two pieces, long pieces of content, and now I'm seeing my face all over the place because she is posting it everywhere, creating shorts, you know,
Yep.
and it's everywhere. It's on Instagram, it's on LinkedIn, it's everywhere my face is, so that's the I every time I open LinkedIn, oh my God, me again, so that's so cool.
Yeah, and you were talking about at the beginning, you were talking about, having a business that doesn't, I can't remember the words that you use, but essentially a business that doesn't run you. You've got some sort of freedom where you're running your business
Mhm.
and creating your content. Um, I call it creating video first podcast content. So, what I would do is create a video of a chat like this, and then you put that on YouTube, and then you put it on your podcast and your audio platform, and then you take out micro pieces of content. So, you've got your reels. We take out of a podcast episode, we take quotes from our guests or interesting quotes. We create carousels that is based on the information in the episode. Like we create, I think it's over 300 pieces of content by the time it's on the different
Right.
platforms from one piece of video content. And for someone like me, and I think you as well, who loves to have conversations with really smart entrepreneurs or really smart people, we get to do this really cool video, have an absolute blast, and then end up with 300 pieces of content.
Yeah.
So it's just such a smart way to create your content.
Yeah, and also, I guess a podcast means conversations. Is that what you choose doing?
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend that, and for some other reasons, maybe we'll talk about it as well. Uh, it's so you just chat, right? I think it's important to have a topic, an overarching theme, so people know what you are about. But you create content by talking, like you said, to these amazing people. It's so easy. It's like, meeting with a friend for a coffee or a glass of wine,
Mm.
you know. And also, I have to say, what was increasingly surfacing for me, the other aspect, which actually is leading me to being even more strategic with my podcast and with some other stuff, is the legacy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Creating this content that lives, and not only because it makes me think of how I create that content because I know it's gonna live
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and compounds, right? Do you think that's important as well? Like the viewership compounds. It doesn't disappear,
Absolutely.
right?
Well, your podcast content is evergreen, which means that normally when you post on social media, at some point, unless someone scrolls through your profile, generally it'll be seen and then it goes to die somewhere in social media land. It never gets seen again most of the time. Where with a podcast, someone could be listening to an episode on something that interests them, and then they might scroll your back catalog to look for other episodes. And what we find a lot with our podcast is that if someone finds a topic that they really like, they'll go back and they'll binge all the episodes. So they might be listening to an episode that you recorded 7, 8, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
sometimes even longer, of long form content. Like it's just so good.
Yes, there are people that when I tuned into them, I listened to every single episode they had. And I kept
Mm-hmm.
waiting for a new one for
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the amazing parts of podcasting is that we see that it's one of the few platforms where people are waiting for your content. So if you're really good
Mhm.
at creating consistently, so if you create a podcast, and this can work for YouTube as well, if you create a habit with your audience where they know that an episode drops every Tuesday morning, And it just so happens that every Tuesday afternoon, they go to the gym and walk on the treadmill for half an hour, and
Mhm.
they get into a habit, they will automatically open up their phone and they will look for the new episode that's dropped. There, no one does that on social media. Open up a social media and say, "Oh, I hope Adita's posted today. Like, I'm really waiting for her next post." Like, it
Right.
doesn't work like that. But if they know that your episode drops every Tuesday morning, and and they open their phone, they'll be like, "Oh, let me go look for it. I really can't wait to hear her next
Mm,
episode." And that is gold. Having your audience waiting for you to drop a piece of content.
absolutely. Yeah, it is gold. And so the other lovely, amazing side effect, which I knew was going to happen, but I could not feel it with my body before I actually experienced it, all the connections and all the
Mm-hmm.
relationships. Oh my God, it feels so expensive. I'm meeting so,
It does. I agree.
right? What does that mean to you?
So
And you're
I want to,
meeting people, maybe some
oh,
amazing stories, something.
yeah. So before I talk about some of those amazing stories, I want people to understand that with a podcast, imagine that you've got a front stage and a backstage. So I'm from a dance background. So I was always in theaters putting
Right?
on shows. So think about, it's very easy to picture the audience. If you're an audience member, you go in and you sit down and the curtain opens and you see the show. Think about that as your podcast listener. And that's what most people think about for a podcast. They think, oh, I want to make sure that I get lots of downloads and lots of people listening. But what's happening in the backstage in a show, you've got producers and you've got, people, performers that are waiting in the green room, and you've got sound technicians and sound technicians, and you've got dressers, and you've got all of these people that make up the back end. Well, that's exactly the same as a podcast. You've got your team that produces it and puts it together, but you have these amazing guests that come and you get to chat to them in the green room. So once you hit stop, we'll have this conversation now, and then you'll stop the recording, and chances are you and I will probably have a chat, and you get to know who this person is, and you get to ask them, hey, how can I help you, and how can you help me, what is it that we can do together? Like, there's all sorts of conversations that happen. But not only that, you get access to people that you wouldn't normally get access to. So there might be people that are like way out of, not that I think that anyone's better than other, but there are some people that you don't normally get to have a chat with or a
Hmm.
coffee chat with. I've got to speak to some of the most amazing people, and not just speak to them, but ask them questions for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, all the things that I want to know about them. I get to learn. It's almost like a mini masterclass for me, learning all of these things. And then I've got that connection for life as well. That it is so magical, some of the conversations you have with people, that there is no other way that you would meet them. It's exceptional.
Yes, yes, and I totally agree. Having your own show, your own platform gives you permission to approach these people. Now you have a reason, right? And pretty much everyone is looking for most for more exposure, right? And as you grow, you have more and more permission to access all sorts of
That's
people.
right.
It's amazing. It's and also people are very nice. I think, do you agree that like, many people think, how can I approach somebody? How can I ask them? Who am I to do it? But my experience has been that, well, first of all, you don't have to think about Tony Robbins, on your
That's
show.
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Right?
Um, I think that yes, there are some people that are say, "Oh, look, your show's too small," or "I'm too busy," or "I'm not doing podcasts right now." But most people think that that's the majority of people, where
Mhm.
actually it's the minority of people. That most people generally, as humans, we love to help. right? It's natural for us to want to help someone else. So when someone says, "Hey, would you like to be on my show?" Most people are like, "I'd be honored." And it's just such a beautiful interaction because both sides of the mic, people are grateful. As the show host, you're grateful that someone has agreed to come on your show, but as the guest, you're also grateful that the host has given you a moment on their platform that they've created. So it's just um you'd be surprised when you put your wish list out there of who you want on your show, how many of those people you can actually connect with.
Yeah, and it has been my experience as well. Out of, I think I'm approaching, I'll see if our episode maybe is number 50 or so, or very close to that, right?
Wow, you've done so well.
Yeah, and I only have a few people who, maybe just a couple of people who asked about the size of the episode out of all these people,
Yeah.
and only a couple of other who postponed the last minute or something like that. Other than that, it's been amazing. But with on that note, I'd like to maybe steer the conversation towards like for somebody who maybe is thinking about creating a podcast and also has that, oh, why would I do that? Who's gonna talk to me
Mm.
or whatever. I have some thoughts around why would somebody talk to you, but what would you say? What somebody needs to know or to do to start a podcast?
I think it is quite a big decision, even though I honestly believe that it's I know that I believe that most service providers, I think every service provider should have a podcast just because of everything that we've talked about so far. However, there are quite a lot of things to take into account. Number one, um, you need to be really clear that it does take a little bit of work. Now, I know that there are some people that will just grab the episode and they just, don't edit it and they just sort of pop it somewhere and never touch it again. But if you're going to create show notes, if you're going to create images, if you're going to repurpose that content, yeah, I 100% say you should. And it's the best way to leverage your time. But it still takes time to do that as well, right? It still takes time to edit your show, to grow it. It's not just going to happen without you trying to or putting some sort of strategy behind it. So, get clear on who your show is for. What do they want to hear about? Why do they want to listen to you? What is your strategy? What are your success metrics? So, I mentioned before, a lot of people think it's just downloads, where for us, I'm not as worried about downloads. Our success metrics are how many people come into our sales funnel from our podcast, how many people that come onto our sales calls listen to our podcast, so that when they come on a sales call, they already pretty much have decided, oh, we're going to work with you anyway. There's not actually a call as such because they've already listened to our podcast. So just be really clear on what your success metrics are and then create a strategy that matches that. But in saying all that, there's work in every part of your business, right? Everything is some sort of work. We can't lie on a beach in Bali in a hammock and expect our business to just grow. It's not going to happen. So, as long as you go into it with your eyes open and understand that it's a little bit of work, as long as you've got your strategy in place, it's definitely a platform that I would highly recommend getting onto for all of the reasons that we've just talked
Yeah.
about. There's so many different um, ways that we can win or get great outcomes with having a podcast. And it's not just downloads.
Yeah, it's a good point. It does require some work. It's also connecting with people, having a chat, meeting with them and, getting to know them, things like that, all of that. However, when I realized, I remember I was thinking, let me just focus on creating one good piece of content a week. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other content, the social media, for example, is when I feel like it. when I have something to say, when I feel that I want to say it on Facebook. I was like, I remember the sense of relief, okay, just
Mm,
let's focus. So ultimately, like if you shift your exposure that way, again, I mean, it adds work here, but then it takes away work
that's right.
here, right?
Yeah. The other thing I probably should mention here that I didn't is be really clear and honest with yourself about how you like to create content. So if you don't like to interview guests or you prefer just to almost use the mic as a journaling procedure, then or a process, just do that. If you're someone that loves to chat with people and it energizes you, then maybe you want to do it 2 or 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want long episodes because you like to go deep. Maybe you want short episodes that someone can consume in 5 minutes. Don't follow someone else's rules.
Yeah.
Go with how you're energetically going to be able to keep going and take that strategy. Because the problem when most people burn out, or a lot of people say, oh, I'm nervous that I'm going to run out of topics, or I don't want to keep reaching
Mm-hmm.
out to guests, or whatever it is for them, it's because they've started with someone else's strategy. So just think, what fulfills me? What excites me? What fills me up? I can see when you talk about having conversations with your guests, like your physiology changes, you get excited, you can see it fills your cup, and it does for me too. So we've both got a similar strategy. But for someone that thinks, oh my goodness, that would deplete me, then don't try and do it. If it's going to
Mm-hmm.
deplete you, don't do it. Don't start doing that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be conversations. It can be solo. And just to add to that, to encourage the one listening, when some people who listen to me, I mention this from time to time, but when I first started, I was brushing my teeth and I got the urge, because I was like, okay, when am I starting? I knew I was starting a podcast. I just didn't know when exactly, which day. But then I
Mm.
was brushing my teeth. I'm like, okay, today, when I brush my teeth,
Wow.
you know? And you know
That's
what I
awesome.
did, right? And because I'm a marketer and I'm a salesperson, I'm a copywriter, obviously my head is buzzing with all sorts of frameworks and strategies and whatever. And at that stage, I knew I didn't want to get in my own way, and overthink. So
Mm-hmm.
I just grabbed my phone and I sat in the wardrobe for better sound because I didn't even have any setup. Even this setup that I have now is very basic, you know. Uh, uh, and I just talked,
Yeah.
no framework, nothing, no guests, nothing. And I have a few episodes like that. It's just, and then I want to talk a little bit about the statistics. I think if people know the statistics of how many people actually push, I don't want to use push, actually, the word push, get through 3 episodes. I think it's like, I can't remember exactly,
Oh, I think it's gone
50%.
to 7 episodes now. It's called pod fading. So people start a podcast and then I think it's maybe episode 7. It's higher than it used to be. It did used to be episode 3, and then their show just they never
It's
go
like
back to it.
only 20% get through. The numbers I saw, only 20% of people get through 8 episodes, something like that. And
Mhm.
when you have 21, you are in the 1% of
I
podcast.
think, yeah, it's higher than that, but definitely you're definitely on the right track. That so many people start and don't continue. And this goes back to what we were saying. Start something that you're excited by, start
Mm,
something that's aligned with the way you create content. Definitely choose a subject that you get excited by and
exactly.
go into it knowing that you're going to stick to it. What is your strategy to create that content consistently? Do you need to batch your content? I would highly recommend people batch their content,
Mm-hmm.
because when things come up, you want to make sure that there's an episode there ready to drop. And it's not like if something happens, it's like when something happens. There's always something going on in our lives where real people having real experiences where things don't always go to plan. So making sure that you've got episodes in the bank, making sure that you batch record, there's lots of different strategies, but definitely go into it knowing that you're going to stick to it.
Yeah, and which brings me to actually touching on, I don't know, I call it a mission, right? So when I was looking at those numbers, I was thinking these people who dropped out probably started a podcast for some strategic reasons only,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hoping to get traction, leads, whatever. It didn't happen after 3 episodes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there is no mission, there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah,
For me, what's really helpful, like, and also brings me back to our conversation about reaching out to people. My mission, I have a soundbite by the way. My mission gives me permission to reach out to people because this is something important we need to talk about. You know?
absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you tell people who potentially they are not sure what they should talk about?
Mm,
They kind
mm.
of see, okay, now for me to be safe, I do need my own platform, but
Mm.
what will I talk about? What would you tell them?
I think a really great way to start is to guest on other people's podcasts because people will ask you questions that they're interested about and it will start to help you understand, oh, I like to talk about this or I don't like to talk about this. And it starts to give you an idea of what really lights you up because there's some podcasts that you come off and you think, oh, that was good, and there's some you come off thinking, oh my goodness, that was the best ever, and you're on cloud nine for the rest of the day. So, what were you talking about? And I think that that is probably an easy way to start is to guest on other people's podcasts first. If you just want to get going, think about the conversations that you could talk about underwater with marbles in your mouth for 3 days straight
Mhm.
without taking a breath. Because that topic that when you start talking about it, that you just almost can't stop, that's most probably the topic that or the theme that you should have your podcast around. Some of the other things you can do is ask your audience, what do I talk about that you're really interested in? Or what are the things that you've seen me post that you want to hear more about? And ask your audience. And it's a really great way to get your social media audience involved because they're like, oh, cool. You're starting a podcast. Tell me when. And it's a great way to start that momentum and that conversation.
Yeah, super. And do you have any tips for getting on other people's podcasts?
Definitely like think about the people that you're already connected with because that's going to be the easiest way to start. So who are you connected with that has a podcast, and reach out and ask them. Do not reach out through the lens of I want to be on your show. Reach out from the lens of I've had a look at your podcast, I notice you talk about these topics. I think that I can see who your audience is and what they're interested in, and this is how I could add value to your podcast. I could talk about this, this, and this. So make it as easy for the podcast host as possible, so that when they open your email or your message or your text or whatever it is, that they go, "Oh, I know what your topic is." Because if we don't understand as hosts what your topic is, then chances are we won't accept you as a guest. And if I see, I don't know about you, but if I see, I get 10 to 15 pictures a day for my show. And if someone reaches out and says, I've got a new book, I want to be on your podcast, or I've got a new program, I want to come on your podcast to tell everyone about it, they're not the right fit for my show because they're not thinking about how can I add value to Sam's audience. So it's
Yeah.
always how can I add value to the audience of that show?
Yes, and also it's so helpful for you to know what you're about, what your contribution is. I talk about it a lot in terms of sales because if you don't know why you're selling what you're selling, it's very hard to sell. And, it's the
Mm-hmm.
same with everything. Okay, so do you have some sort of like for getting on other people's shows? Do you have your dream shows? where you would like to be as a guest? I'm
Yeah,
not
so I
to name them, but just, just curious.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the biggest platforms are the shows that we all aspire to be on. Don't start there. Don't think, oh my goodness, I want to be on, Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. Like, if that's your first show, like, you are not going to get on that show. But put that sort of, at the top, like, that's the furthest away. Like, cut your teeth, and then maybe you'll end up there. So, when you're reaching out to shows, think about starting at the smaller shows, the people that you know, and then reaching out to maybe people you don't know that still maybe have smaller shows or newer shows. Because just like anything, the more you practice, the better you'll get, the better you will be at answering questions or telling stories or whatever it is. It gets easier. So get on your smaller shows and move out. But the other thing that I love is creating this is for podcast hosts, create a dream 100 list of your
Mm.
100 dream people that you want on your show. Tell everyone about it, share it with every one of your guests and say, hey, look, here's my dream 100 list. If there's anyone on this list that you know or that you could possibly do an introduction to, I'd really appreciate it. And it is amazing how many people you can get connected with.
I need to use that tip. That's cool.
Yeah.
I do have my dream, not necessarily 100, but I do have my dream guests. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool.
So bring it into, manifest it. Put it the first part of reality. Put it into a
Right.
document and share it with people.
Yeah, very cool. And just to add another tip, and I think where I started to, I didn't need it for a long time, but there are groups, there are communities where people are
Hmm.
looking to be a guest on other people's shows or are looking for guests, and because they are in that community, it's a signal they are looking for it already, so it's so easy to get them on your
Mm,
show as well, right? So
totally. There's lots of Facebook groups where look up the hashtag in the search of like need a guest or
be a guest.
find a guest, be a guest, look up
Yeah.
those kind of things. And people are posting all the time. The other thing is that there's different websites like Podmatch, for example, where you can put a profile up and say, this is who I am and this is what I talk about. And podcast hosts will reach out to you, but also you can find podcast hosts on there and reach out to them. So Podmatch is a really great website as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Agree, agree. Yeah, very cool. Yes, so what is your so is your the content that you create for your podcast, is it your main like core content that kind of everything else kind of lives around?
Yeah, for us in our business, it is. We use it as our main piece of content. So if we've got certain content pillars, we'll create a podcast episode about that. And then that, like I said, that goes onto YouTube. It's our blog, it's our social media, it's our even our like Facebook ads, it's our top of funnel content for everything. We even use it in our sales process that when we've had a qualification call or triage call, whatever people call them, like a getting to know you call, and we're asking someone about some of the challenges that they've had, we will actually send them before the sales call. We'll send them links to episodes that specifically talk
Mm,
about those topics. So, and say, hey, have a listen to these before you come onto the sales call. And mostly we use case study episodes. So I will send if someone comes onto a qualification call that says, I've been in business for a really long time, and we get all of our clients by referrals, and we we don't know how to do the new age of marketing, and we're not quite sure how to transition over. Then I will get an episode where I've interviewed a client on how she took her 30-year business and moved it into an online program. Hey, listen to this before your sales call. So we use it very strategically in lots of different ways.
that's very cool. Yeah, that's super cool. Do you have some sort of framework that you follow for your podcasts?
In relation to creating the topics,
topics and then the content. I know the conversation or whatever it is.
We, and I say we as a company, I don't run my podcast on my own. I have a large team behind me. I mean, not Diary of a CEO large team. They have 100 people on their team, but we've got quite a few people on our team, and our entire team knows our ideal client profile. Our avatar. So we know what the challenges are of our ideal clients, what it is that they're looking for, what the problems are that they're looking for solutions for. So we will make sure that we're creating content or asking guests that always adds value to that audience, so that we're not just having a random episode that's kind of, it doesn't fit with what our ideal client is looking for. So from a framework perspective, that's how we choose our guests, that's how we choose our topics.
Mm-hmm.
We've got ideal client profiles that we know we have to cover these certain topics. The other thing that we'll do is, once we're a certain way in, we're at, like I said, 600 and something episodes, we go back and we always look, what are the top 10 episodes at the moment, and we will go back and cover those topics again, because when you talk about a topic on a different day, it always sounds different, or a
Yeah.
different idea will drop in. So we'll always make sure, what are the top topics that are most downloaded, and we'll go and recreate content on those topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've seen podcasts, where I like, okay, the topic sounds interesting, the title is interesting, I start listening, and then it's not even on point. It doesn't
Mm.
correlate with my expectations, and then the whole podcast is kind of like random conversations. I think that's what you don't
Mm-hmm.
want. It still needs,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, as a host, do your homework. Who's the guest you're speaking to? Make sure that you are asking questions that will add value to your audience. But also, as a guest, do homework on the podcast you're going to be on. So I guess it doesn't matter whether you're a host or a guest. Do some research. Make sure that you know who you're speaking to, so that you're adding value.
So, how do you think having your own platform with your own rules adds to the idea of creating and growing your business from the place of freedom?
Very cool question. Look, at the end of the day, we need to have a business that's built on our rules. We need to have, and there needs to be a few certain things happening that's like, to have that freedom. We need to have systems, we need to have processes, but we also need to have clients coming in the door. If we don't have clients coming in the door, we don't have a business, because we're not making any money. So, a podcast helps us to get our message out to as many people as possible in a platform that is exceptionally easy to consume. It's so easy to put, you know, earphones in, AirPods in, and just flick onto your phone and listen while you're doing something else. It's not like YouTube where you have to sit and watch it, or to be scrolling, you need to be sitting somewhere, or it's very hard to scroll while you're walking along. So I think podcast having that platform is very easy to consume, but we're getting it out to the people that need to hear us.
Mm.
And going back to how we started this conversation, we need to create an ecosystem of people coming in, so that we can create sales. And that is broken down to the lowest possible denominator. There's sales coming in the door, which means that then we can create the systems, we can create the processes. But having financial stability is one of the greatest movers of the freedom needle. When we don't have financial stability, it's very hard to have freedom.
Yeah, and are you aware of any sales still coming in from a podcast, an episode made like a couple of years ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the
But
beauty of it.
also, absolutely. Also, you get other opportunities from that. So you might get a chance to speak on a stage. where the leverage comes from is we're always speaking in a one-to-many environment. So we speak once, we're talking to each other, and lots of people will hear it. And not only will lots of people hear it whenever it goes live, but people will be listening to that potentially for
Yeah.
as long as they want.
I know. I keep, every now and then I open the stats and I see the episodes that used to not do that well at some point. Now they're doing better. People are still listening, which is kind of weird. Like I even forgot almost about that episode, and now look, it's 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 a miracle. It feels like a miracle sometimes.
Yeah. And yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so for somebody who is listening, if they are maybe thinking, maybe I should do it, or I'm not that sure, what is the one shift they could make today towards creating their own platform?
Whew, that one shift, such a for a platform, big question. I think the one shift that I would say is to understand that the more people know who you are, the better off you're going to be in business. So the one shift to make is, how do I most enjoy to get my message out? Because that will answer what platform to go with. So if someone's listening and go, oh, yeah, but I don't really enjoy talking to myself, but I love connecting with people, maybe that's a podcast. Oh, I actually love to hold my phone up and create videos. Then maybe YouTube is for you. If I love to write, maybe your platform is your blog. So think, how do I most love to share my message, and then do more of that.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. And I ask every guest three blitz questions at the end of my episodes. But before that, before I do that to you or with you, um, tell a little bit more about who you work with, how you help them, and where they can find you.
Yeah. So I work with coaches, I work with service providers, visionary leaders to help them be the sought after industry leader. Do it in a very specific way, bringing together energetics and strategy, because I believe that both play a part.
Right.
So, on the scale of Wendy Woo Woo and Bro Marketer, I'm right in the middle. I
Mm.
like to have strategy, but filled with beautiful energy. Um, so if you're that kind of person and you want to build your business, then definitely reach out. The best place to find me, we've been talking about it a lot, is my podcast. Um, the podcast is currently called Influence by Design. We're about to do a bit of a shift. So I'm sure if you look it up, you'll be able to find it anyway. But sometime in the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure when this episode's going live, but sometime in the next couple of weeks, it's going to have a bit of a change. So yeah, look us up, Influence by Design. You'll find my podcast on all of my social platforms. Look me up, Samantha Riley.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing the change.
Yeah.
Super. I'll drop the links in the show notes anyway. So it's gonna lead the link probably is gonna still lead to the same podcast regardless of what its name is.
100%.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So the three questions. So the first one is, what change would you like to see in the world?
Oh, this is so easy for me. The biggest change I want to see in the world is people actually living a life that they want to live. I think that there's so much anxiety, depression, um, hate in the world because people aren't actually living a life they want to live. And I think if
Mhm.
people, um, as business owners, I think it kind of starts with us to help people to
Yeah.
live their most desired life, because that ripples out to family, to friends, to our children. And I know it's not going to happen in my lifetime, but if we can start to get this message out, then one day my hope is that it will.
Yeah. I do believe we are playing this role of, creating this impact, this kind of impact in the world. You and I
Mm,
and all entrepreneurs and business owners.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah. Very cool. So the next question is, what legacy would you personally like to create?
Mhm. I the legacy that I want to leave is people feeling like they've been seen and heard. W- It might sound so tiny, but we're living in this world that is so connected, more connected than at any other time ever in the world, yet people are feeling less connected than ever. And just by, I want people to say, I felt seen and I felt heard. That is a great legacy. There are so many things, but that to me is so important.
Yeah, I love that. Really, really do. Yeah. And the last question is, when you hear from grind to grace, what goes through your mind?
Mm. I actually really love the name of this show
Thank you.
because I think that there are so many people that are grinding away in their business, and they started their business because it's something they really wanted to do. It's something that they felt really called to do. It was something that excited them. And somewhere along the way, they may have got caught up grinding because they don't know any other way. And there is another way. There is a graceful and elegant way to run our business. And to know that all that needs to happen is that you need to just be open to the shift, because what got you here won't get you there. There is another way, and discover it and do something different. Because if you're grinding, that's awful. It just doesn't feel nice at all.
Thank you. That's the message. That is the message. There is another way.
Mm.
Oh my God, love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And everything else, your thoughts, your insights, your experience, your energy. Loved having you on my show and appreciate you. Thank you so much. And the one listening, I wouldn't believe you didn't get any nuggets today, and I wouldn't believe that either you or you don't know someone who might need this a lot. We need to spread the message. It's important. So please follow, share. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next week again. Bye now.